who are doing the logistics side of it. This is the 7th of 8 events, so we're getting to the end of our events now, which is great to see so many names that have been on before. And today we're focusing on Liverpool hospitality sector. So we've got some real great guests on the call. So I'm just going to take you through it. So we're going to introduce the 3 guests. After we've done that, the 3 guests will speak as usual, and then we'll fire over to questions as well. So first up, we're going to have Anthony Mee. He's head of finance for ARC Hospitality and Recruitment. He's got over 10 years experience in financial management, and he started working at an entry level and worked his way up. So that's brilliant to see and brilliant to hear. He's obviously well driven. And then second, we're going to go over to Paul Askew, who's a chef and partner and CEO at the Art School in Liverpool. He's got a real passion for food and culture, and he loves mentoring new talent and up-and-coming chefs. He's also a joint chair of Liverpool Hospitality Association as well. So some real good guests. And last but not least, Mike Gavin. He's a director of ARC Recruitment and Hospitality as well. He also runs 2 recruitment businesses. And his first client, believe it or not, was Liverpool Football Club. So that's going to be really interesting as well. Okay, so they're going to be our 3 guest speakers. So if it's okay, we'll hand over to Anthony. And he'll begin his talk now. Over to you, Anthony.
Oh, that's working now. Hello, everyone. You okay? For some reason, it wasn't allowing me to unmute, so there's a reason for the silence. So sorry about that. Am I okay to have my video on for this, or?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, if you want to put your video on and get going, that'd be great.
Yeah, just put the lights on a bit dark. Yeah, so as Rob said, I'm Anthony Mee. I'm head of finance for ARC Hospitality and ARC Recruitment Solutions Limited. So I've got 10 years financial management experience. When I was 16, 17, I started with a YTS at Oldham Football Club. So I was very much playing football, trying to become a professional footballer. Soon realised that I wasn't going to make it. Wasn't really doing well. Wasn't really getting any chances with the first team. So I quickly decided that I wanted to go more into the educational side of things. Went to uni, done a degree in international banking, and then when I left uni, it was then when I decided what I wanted to do. So I went to uni not really knowing what I wanted to do, which, if I could give some advice now, would be to try and, if you can, try and map out or plan what you want to do at an earlier stage. I didn't really know what I wanted to do until I was roughly 21, 22. And I fell into a finance and admin assistant role. Really enjoyed it, really excelled at it. Found the informal leadership within teams that really resonated with me. I've always found myself as a natural leader, always been captain of football teams throughout my childhood, really. So I sort of fell into the whole finance journey. Became a finance supervisor, finance manager within 2 years. Worked my way up through large social enterprises. Then I sort of got headhunted to work in another charity within St. Helens. I went there, worked there for 3 years, overhauled their financial processes, and then eventually ended up at ARC. Currently got a team of 5, currently responsible for large volume payroll. So we pay up to 2,000, 3,000 members of staff every month. I'm responsible for all the financial reporting, financial governance, ensuring there's enough cash within the business. And we're now starting, obviously we've had to pivot because of COVID. So we're now starting an exciting journey into other sectors and looking at creating new businesses as well. So yeah, that's just a brief outline for me. I'm very much enjoy the development side of staff. I always say to my staff, if you leave an organisation, I hope it's always to move on to a job with more responsibility. And I like to develop members of staff, and I think I've been good at that over the years. I like to take young people as finance admin assistants and train them up and allow them to shape their own careers by giving them the skills needed to actually progress in the finance world. So that's my passion. That's the purpose. And really, I volunteered for the call. Really, was to try and give some insight into some of the skills that you may be needed in the next 5 to 10 years, or when you start moving into your next career journey. Really, so that's just a brief outline of me, if that's okay.
Brilliantly. So can you just? I think so many people here see so many successful people being CEOs and things like that, and don't really know the journey. And when you sent me your bio through yesterday, you started at an entry level. So could you talk more about sort of how things progressed for you from when you first started and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, so when I first started in the organisation, I've always had the intrinsic motivation to be to excel. I've always wanted. I always want to win. That's a big. Sometimes that could be a bit of a criticism if I'm honest. I always want to win, but I always want to be the best at what I do. So when I went into the organisation, I wanted to absorb as much knowledge as possible. So I was asking questions all the time. I was over communicating. I would align myself with certain people within the organisation. I would identify very early on who had like power and who had a lot of knowledge and key skills within the organisation, and I'd absorb as much from them as possible. And then from that, I would help team members around me. So I wouldn't just be, oh look at Anthony, he can do this. I would try and filter that across the whole team, and I think that's why I got identified very early on for like leadership roles, because I was informally doing it every day within the team. So once I got the team leader role, I didn't want to just stay static. I would go home. I'd further self-develop. I'd enroll on courses. I'm a keen believer in self-development throughout your journey. So I'm currently now on a master's in business administration course, and after that I'll probably do something else. I'm very, very much, you need to continue to develop regardless of how old you are. So my initial self-development was learning everything within the business and becoming a specialist within that business. And as time transpires, there's a lot of skills that you learn that are transferable. So my first job, I used to work for a large charity dealing with public funding money from local authorities, but a lot of that key skills I've been able to transfer into the private sector, because I was dealing with like large volumes of data, and I'd have to manipulate large spreadsheets. And at the time, a lot of people were doing it manually, and I would sit there and say to myself, there must be an easier way to do this. So I was always question the status quo, and it wasn't to challenge any of my peers or any senior people within the organisation. I just wanted to make things better, and that was like a bit of a passion inside me to make my job easier and to make my colleagues' lives easier. So for me, it was very much about over communicating, learning new skills, trying to help people around me. And then because I was doing that informal leadership role, I quickly progressed into financial management. And then as I progressed through the ranks, you start dealing with more complex pieces of work, and then you start dealing with external stakeholders and absorb as much information of them. So I think in my mid-20s, I was probably a bit of a nightmare for certain people, because I just ask questions all the time and just absorb as much knowledge as possible. And now I'm seeing it is now that same thing is happening to me now. A lot of people come to me for certain knowledge, and I'd like to give that back, because I've certainly gained that knowledge from certain individuals over the years. So for me, it's just, there's never a wrong question to ask. And one of the biggest advices I always give my members of staff: don't be afraid to make mistakes. For me, if you can make mistakes throughout your journey, as long as you don't carry on making the same mistakes over and over again, you will self-develop in organisations, because that's how you learn. I certainly made mistakes early on in my career, And I feel as though I'm a better person for that now because I made them mistakes. So yeah, so that's my journey really, is this a lot of informal leadership allowing me to progress into leadership roles, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, no, brilliant. Fascinating journey, Anthony. And I know there's a couple of lecturers on here from business as well. So Anthony was one of my lecturers. He's on here now, and he says the same. And it's all about the journey and sort of, you know, getting your experience before you go into them bigger roles. So that was really good. I know there's a few questions coming in now with James, but we'll go over to Paul, give you a chance to get quick water, and then we'll do questions at the end. So thank you very much. Over to you, Paul.
Hi, thanks very much. Good morning, everybody. So I'm Paul Askew. I'm the chef patron and the chief exec of the Art School Restaurant and the Art School Cellars. I'm also the co-chair of Liverpool Hospitality Association and also the co-chair of the Royal Academy of Culinary Art in the north of England. So I've been in the business, believe it or not, this is my 40th year. Last man standing and all that sort of stuff. Chefs usually pack up before now, but I'm a little bit crazy and I'm still in love with the job that I do. So my journey started quite early. My father was in shipping, and therefore as a family we travelled around the world quite a lot. Started in Sunderland, a bit like Mr. Henderson, and came to Liverpool when I was 4 years old. And my dad was based here because of the shipping in the port at the time with Blue Star Line. Ironically, he was the guy going around the world picking up lamb from New Zealand, beef from Argentina, and now I'm the guy saying, buy from your farm shop, go local, all that sort of thing. So it's come full circle in that respect. But the reason for me becoming obsessed with all things hospitality and all things food and drink started with travel. And I think this is a great thing, that when this COVID nightmare is over and people can travel again, it's about the study of food culture and how what we eat, what we drink with that food, where, you know, the sense of identity, the sense of place. And you can almost see it in our city, what's happening in our food culture and what's happened over the last 20 years. So I'll come back to that in the future. But basically, because I was exposed to travel and sort of foreign ingredients, foreign foods, different styles, different fish markets, different spice markets. I was in Dubai at the age of 11, went to school there for a couple of years. Then the family moved to Singapore, which is an even bigger food capital. And I fell in love basically with the whole essence of going to the market, seeing the ingredients, seeing people sat around a table, talking to each other, enjoying each other's company, the conviviality that food and drink brings, the ability to share problems and tell stories and have a great time. And my mum and dad were very sort of hospitable people, if you like, even though he was quite harsh in many ways, but he got to become a sea captain. So it was a bit like being the son of a sergeant major in many ways. But in a funny old way, you know, being a chef is part sergeant major and part artist, and they're very unusual skill sets to have in one person. And I say that because we think of food development, if you like, as art. We think of it as edible art, and for me, you know, my life ambition when I started as a 15-year-old in a hotel locally as a pot washer, you know, peeling spuds, gutting fish, washing dishes, you name it, whatever I was told to do, that's what I had to do. But I immediately fell in love with the whole sort of kitchen banter and even, you know, working with raw ingredients to end up with something amazing on the plate and bringing people pleasure. That's what this is all about, you know. So I worked my way through, became a commis chef, became a chef de partie. Then I went to a local further education college on the Wirral. It was actually Wirral Met. It was in Carlott Park at the time. And it had a very strong catering department. It had a very strong in-house restaurant. And I was lucky enough to be mentored by some really good lecturers, which had huge influence. And then gradually, as I developed as a young chef while I was still studying, I was working in local restaurants on the Wirral land in Liverpool. And then the opportunity came to go abroad myself. Went over to New York, upstate New York, as a sous chef. Stayed there for 2.5 years, and again developed my own style, if you like, my own understanding of ingredients, and probably the first time I had to take responsibility in the kitchen in terms of the brigade and developing other people, not just my own repertoire as a chef, but also about leading people, man management, etc. So that was a very interesting journey, and it was probably the making of me in many ways, because to go and do my own travel was a big thing for me, and to go and set my stall out as a sous chef, but also because I was in charge of an international brigade, people from all over the world, all cultures, all different backgrounds. And sort of as a sous chef, you're the number two in the kitchen. So you've got the hardest job is keeping the head chef happy and keeping the brigade happy at the same time. And you're stuck in the middle, a bit like it's a captain's role, I suppose, similar to what Anthony was saying. You know, you sort of pick up your leadership mentality, and you're given that opportunity, and you either run with it or you step away from it. It's not for everybody, but that's not, you know, the issue is how you motivate your staff, how you keep them together as a team. And I've always felt that in hospitality, it's very much a people business, and whether there's the people sat in the red chairs you see behind me as the guests, or whether it's the people in your team that you're working with, it's all about the people. And I think for me, I've studied long and hard out how to motivate, how to get the best out of people, and also how to give people a good time, which is, I think we call ourselves merchants of happiness in the hospitality industry. So that's what I like to be known as. So that's a little sort of potted history of where I'm at. But I think, you know, in terms of what drives me now, I think, you know, Rob at the beginning mentioned about my desire for mentoring, my desire for development of food culture, and we're determined to be at the front of that in Liverpool. You've seen what's happened in the last 15 years in the city, and I predict a massive boom again when we do get to reopen, and you'll see an even bigger desire, I think, to push the city forward. And on the mentoring side, great news in that, a bit like for us winning the league this year, on my fifth attempt, I managed to get a young National Chef of the Year winner from Liverpool, Liverpool City College, and we took a guy down to London at the end of last year, and he managed to win the finals. So you can see that Scousers can win at cooking as well as on the football field, and that gave us great satisfaction. So I think the next big challenge, I think, for us is to bring Liverpool its first Michelin star, and that's always been on my agenda since I came back from New York in '95. And of course, you know, the meteoric changes in our industry are still happening, but I think Liverpool is in a great position now to move that forward. So I hope that gives you a little background to everything. Anyway, we're sort of open for questions, whatever you want to do, but it's this industry gives massive opportunity, and I can only, you know, encourage anybody watching who wants to have a go is go and get some work placements, go and, you know, talk to your college about what courses are available, because when this does reopen, there are huge opportunities in the industry, and I can only, you know, urge people to come and join us and enjoy what is a fabulous industry.
Yeah, no, brilliant, Paul. I think we'll go to questions from the team just after all three speakers, but we spoke just before everyone come in about sort of how people see hospitality sector of maybe, you know, 20 years ago, not a sort of career, and things like that. Can you just give your advice and sort of your view on that?
Absolutely, yeah. I think what's happened, I refer to it as the sort of Victorian curse, if you like, and if you look back, you know, in Britain, you know, the sort of upstairs downstairs attitude, there was a servant class and a sort of ruling class almost, and I think it's stuck in our DNA as British people that we think that we shouldn't be doing the serving, and we shouldn't be doing the hard work in the kitchen, that somebody should be doing it for us. And I think parents think that's my biggest challenge. My dad was one of them, by the way. He couldn't bear the thought of me going into the kitchen. He thought I was going to be, you know, like a breakfast chef or something like that for the rest of my life. And yet I wanted to be the next Albert Roux, you know. So I don't think he quite understood. You know, he saw it from a ship's point of view, being stuck in the galley, as he called it. And there was huge resistance from him to come into the industry. But yet, as latterly he saw what was happening and being achieved, then he understood where I was coming from. And I think what I would say to both parents and to to people looking at coming in is that, you know, you're not doing the 15, 16-hour days anymore. You know, you're not being the servile wretches. You know, this is like the new rock and roll. I mean, you know, for somebody like me to be going onto TV at the age of 49, 50 and going on Great British Menu and Sunday Brunch and MasterChef and all, you know, those opportunities are there like never before. You know, it's the TV has glamorized the industry. You know, I think sometimes that misleads people a little bit, but without doubt, hospitality, you know, is there for everybody. And I think the Brexit effect of French and Spanish and European staff returning home, which a lot of them have done, sadly, because they're brilliant people, will create even more opportunity for our young people and our locally sourced talent to come into the void that has created. So I honestly, the pay is fantastic. The condition, it comes with its own social life. Yeah, you might have to work a few crazy hours every now and again, but it's such fun. And if you enjoy bringing other people happiness and give them satisfaction, then it's a great job, you know. So we do need to break down that barrier of thinking that, you know, hospitality and catering is something you do if you can't do anything else. That really drives me crazy, because I've now, you know, 40 years, I've got my own restaurant, I've got a champagne bar, we've got an outside catering business, we've got a wine import business, you know. So believe me, there are massive opportunities if you get your head down and do it right. So have a good think about it.
Yeah, amazing advice to all our participants, Paul. So thank you very much. Again, give you a chance to get a quick drink of water before we go over to our questions, and I'll hand over to Michael. Over to you.
Hi everyone. I just want to say thank you to Paul and Anthony. It's very nice and interesting listening to both of them. So I'm Michael Gavin. I'm the director of ARC Hospitality and ARC Recruitment. I've lived in Liverpool my whole life. I'm 33 at the moment, and my journey basically started at the age of 16 as well, really career-wise. The first role was a stock boy at Liverpool Summer Pops concerts. There's a large Arctic lorry full of booze at the back of the bars, and I used to run those crates in every night with my friends, stock the bars up. I used to love it. It was great. It was hard work, but it was really fun. It was great being a part of those events. And then after did that for a few summers, my dad basically ran a hospitality business. So I grew up around food and drink. We used to like going out. And I loved being around sort of restaurants, socializing, concerts, etc. So I knew a little bit about hospitality, and he basically worked with LFC. So I got an introduction to a job there at 16 as a staffing officer. And I used to go in, I was 16 years old, 6 in the morning, make myself a coffee, go down to staff check-in. And there used to be sort of 500-600 hospitality members of staff to check in. It was my job to highlight them off a sheet, make sure they're in the correct uniform, make sure that we had the right levels of staff in each room. And I learnt about staffing in the hospitality staffing industry through LFC on match days. And I used to do that part-time. And I loved it. It was such a great job, such a great experience, such a young age, and getting to work with such great people. And as Paul said, see the passion that people have for the hospitality industry, and what great memories can be made, and sort of the smiles that people would have day in, day out. So I learned the hospitality industry that way. I then went to university in Nottingham at the age of 18, went away. I used to travel back to Anfield every home game to do sort of my staffing job because I loved it that much. I used to get the train home, and then basically kept doing that. But towards the end of my time at uni, I was 20. I remember one day having a chat with Paul, who's head of the hospitality department at LFC behind reception. I was helping out there, and he was like, basically, we've got a few problems with our current agencies. Have you ever thought about potentially doing this yourself? Your dad obviously had a business, you knew a little bit about it. You know, we potentially give you a start if you thought you'd be up for it. And I thought, why not? So I came home from Nottingham, June 2008, age 20, and just thought, give it a go, set ARC up. Didn't know what to call the business, so I opened the dictionary up. ARC's at the top of the page. So I just thought, why not give that a go, and then set the company up. I didn't really have much hospitality experience to start off with, but over time, had to learn that the hard way. So did the kitchen porter shifts, did the bar shifts, did the waiting on shifts, I never did any chef shifts, so I'd be terrible as a chef, but I did all the other sort of jobs that you could do in hospitality. I wasn't very good, but I tried to learn the industry, make connections, meet people, build the business up. After a few months, one of my friends from university, Paul, decided to join me. I was getting a bit busy, and I was like, Paul, do you want to give me a hand? So he joined after 3 months and we went 50-50. And basically we just worked hard, really hard for a long time, 6-7 day weeks, 6 a.m. starts. We'd go and work, Chester races, Aintree races, Haydock, Anfield, Goodison, anything you can imagine. We travel around the country, we'd do events, we'd learn the industry, and also just learn how to run a business. I was really fortunate, and I'm really passionate about people going into business and trying to run a business, because there's a lot of help out there, especially when you're young. People are very keen to help you. I remember going into a bank in Prescott, RBS, and I'm still friends with the bank manager now. And I was like, I'm 20 years old. What do I do? How do I set a business up? He pointed me in the direction of an accountant. He set the account up for me, became a friend. He gave me loads of advice. And I think there's loads of help out there, especially in Liverpool as a city. It's such a supportive city. So I would really encourage people to think, if they are passionate about business, to give it a go, because you can really make something of it, and people are keen to see you succeed. So after a few years, basically, we started to grow the business. We won more clients, and then we just expanded across the UK. Paul moved back home down towards London after a few years, set up an office there, got an office in Manchester, and then we just basically managed to secure contracts all across the UK. But I think the thing that I'm most proud of is that we've given so many opportunities and training to so many people across the country, the hospitality industry. And it's so great to see the journeys and the career paths that have been forged through working in this great industry. And I would encourage anyone to do it as a career, and anything to do with the hospitality industry, because I think it's an industry that rewards hard work, dedication, discipline, a bit of creativity. But if you're willing to work hard, I think you can really achieve great success. And as Paul says, I think it's kind of really valuable, worthwhile careers. And it's one of my pet hates as well, when people talk down about the hospitality industry and potentially make it seem like it's a sort of second-class career. If anything, it was the best decision I ever made, was focusing to work in the hospitality industry at a young age. And I would encourage anyone else to do the same, because I think there's real scope and I think there's real growth potential there. So that's my journey, basically building the business up, learning business. I've learned from the way up. I had to learn from a lot of mistakes. I'd encourage, again, don't get too disheartened when life gives you some knocks or you make mistakes. It's important to grow. It's not a big problem. I remember being really sort of hung up on it when I was young, being scared to fail, scared to make mistakes. And I wish I just could tell myself now to go back and just make more of them, go and have more experiences. Don't be so scared. Just get out there sooner and live your life, and good things will happen. I'm also very fortunate to have been surrounded by such a great team of people. Anthony's a prime example. You're only as good as your team. If you haven't got good people around you, then you're very weak. It's any leaders just needs to have that strong team, strong people pulling together, that sense of unity. So yeah, I think the hospitality industry, I think, is a great career, and I'd encourage anyone to get involved in it. And there's loads of careers around the supply of the hospitality industry. It's not just, you don't have to run a restaurant or a bar, that's great. But, like we do, you can supply staff to the hospitality industry and give employment opportunities, give training, and get worthwhile careers that way. So it's one of my biggest joys and passions, is that people, sort of go into the hospitality industry and also consider business as a career, because it's great. I love being my own boss. It's hard work, it's stressful at times, but there is support out there. And I think it's really, if you are entrepreneurial, you think that it might be something of interest, give it a go. What's the worst that can happen? Yeah, you might potentially not work out, but you'll gain so much experience along the way. So yeah, I think that's a little bit of a brief history from me.
Yeah, again, brilliant, Michael. Thank you very much. So again, give you a chance to go have a quick drink, and James is going to spotlight the 3 guest speakers in, and we'll do a few questions. I'll start off with a couple, and then we'll go over to the team, and then we'll go to participants as well. So we've obviously got values and sort of statements of what we do as a club, and this one's probably the hardest one. So we're going to do dignity today. So social medias, it can be brilliant for companies, it can be awful for companies, when you get some great feedback and some bad feedback. How do you deal with the sort of very few negative comments that could come your way as a company or as a restaurant? And I'll just fire it over to you guys, if that's okay.
Do you want me to come in on that one?
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Well, I think the first thing is, social media is a fantastic tool for the hospitality industry. We have to remember that. And the flip side of it, of course, is that everybody is entitled to their opinion. And what you have to remember is that when you take plaudits, and you take praise, and you take compliments from people, and fabulous chatting backwards and forwards, and that's all good. But you must also accept that some people might not like what you've done and might have a different view. And I think that the most important thing at all times is you, number one, extremely courteous and empathetic towards the person who's making the point, and you deal with it in a very gracious way. It's a bit, in football terms, you have to have grace in victory and defeat, don't you? And it's very much that way in terms of dealing with customers. And I think, if things do go wrong, which they do from time to time, and I spend my life making sure they don't go wrong, but inevitably, 99% of the time you get it right. Every now and again it goes wrong. You hold your hands up and you make sure you put it right, is what I would say. And I think as long as you do that and people see that you do that, you don't have any problem. I think unfortunately what happens is when people rise to a comment or a complaint, and they go head to head, and it starts becoming unpleasant, then that is the last thing you should be doing. So that's certainly where I would come from.
Yeah, I think to jump in, I think feedback's really important to any business. It's key. I think you've got to use it as a real source of growth and potential to improve, and you can get a bit better at anything from one day to the next. And I'm always keen to take feedback as seriously as possible. We're really lucky to have some really strong personnel internally, and that really open-minded and understand that it's important to address feedback and get to the bottom of the source of it and to take it seriously, but be open-minded. And I think, as Paul says, avoid conflict, use it as a room for growth, and genuinely try to get to the bottom of it, have a conversation with the person, find out what's going on, find out what's driven that sort of complaint, where they've come from, try to see their side of the story. And then if you can see their side of the story, it's so much easier to meet in the middle. And often there is scope for improvement, there is scope for change to make something better. But just honesty, an open mind, and trying to put yourself in the other person's shoes, I think always helps a lot. Something has driven that person to write that complaint or to leave that comment. And if you can try and put yourself in their shoes to find out why, I think it makes everything a lot easier.
Yeah, I would come from mine in terms of working with people and colleagues, because obviously I'm from the north end of Liverpool, so I had a very sheltered upbringing in terms of coming across different people from different cultures and different backgrounds. And I think, as Paul and Mike said, is understanding people's differences of opinion and embracing that and accepting that. So that's something that I've certainly learned along my career journey. As someone that's basically being brought up in Norris Green for 20 years, I didn't come across any different types of cultures really. So understanding that and embracing that's really important when you go into your career, is that not everyone's going to have the same upbringing and the same opinion as you. So it's really important to embrace that for me.
Yeah, again, some great advice there. I know, sorry to bring this up, but I think it's one of the big questions that everyone's asking at the minute is all things COVID around the hospitality sector. And I was speaking to all three of the guests just before the participants come in, and you've adapted what you've had to do. So can you just, we go on about resilience all the time to our participants and the people who we teach all the time. So can you just say how resilient you've had to be, and sort of how you thought outside the box to keep your companies going in such a hard time?
Do you want me first again, or?
Yeah, any's good, thank you.
Well, I think the first thing, the day that we were all asked to close our businesses, I think it was the 20th of March, was probably the worst day of my 40-year career I can possibly imagine. And there was a real emotion and a real sort of sadness to lock the doors and turn everybody away. I remember it was the last Friday before Mothering Sunday, and we were absolutely chock-a-block with prepaid guests and everything. So it was a devastating blow. And of course, none of us thought for 1 minute that a year later we'd still be talking about being in lockdown for this Mother's Day a year on. So what we looked at very early was, what options do we have here? And a lot of it was about learning what the restrictions meant to our business, learning as much as we could from local government, from advisors, from even lobbying central government as well to find out more information. And it was such a tough time. I don't think we'll ever, I hope we never have a year like it again. But the resilience side of things is massive in business. And, you know, you do have to roll with the punches sometimes when things aren't going your way. And this has been the test, the mother of all tests. And I think what we decided to do was to keep, it was all about preserving the team for me. I didn't want to lose any members of staff. I didn't want to make any redundancies because for me, the team is the essential ingredient for hospitality. And just like a football team or a rugby team, you know, if you haven't got your key people on the park, you're nothing, you know, and it was all about preservation of what we'd built up over 7 years. So we looked at repurposing the bar downstairs into a shop. So it became a food and drink shop, which obviously allows us to open as an essential option. Ours is probably a bit more gastronomic and a bit more and a bit more high end than most essential shops, but nevertheless, it is a food and drink shop. And we were baking our own breads as usual and doing our own pies and pastries and cheeses and charcuterie, anything we can do. We got our wine list online. We got our e-commerce business sorted out. So we were able to do click and collect. And then more recently, probably only since the November, well, no, we did do some in the summer months actually, but more recently we've started doing the art school at home. And for me, it was about the resilience and the survival going through the COVID scenario, but it was also about future-proofing because, you know, I was thinking to myself, well, for all we know, maybe another virus comes in, God forbid, 6 months' time, and this happens again. So I think the e-commerce and the at-home scenario for hospitality will stay around. I think businesses will keep that within their operating cycle, if you like, so that we can flip if we need to. And that is about the longevity of the business, the future-proofing of the business, and making sure that you're able to keep your team together and not be making redundancies. Because once you're in that spiral of changing your team and changing your staff, oh, sorry, somebody at the door. You know, no disrespect to ARC, you know, but, you know, I need agency staff when we've got big events, and they are fantastic staff that ARC provide. There's no doubt about that. But from a 7-day-a-week operation like mine, we need our hardcore and our first teamers, if you like. That's what we need. So it was all about the preservation of the team.
Yeah, for me, what Paul said there is it's about adaptability. You've got to be able to adapt, and not just if you're a business owner. I've had to adapt as an employee. All my processes have completely had to change and pivot. And obviously, I've said here I've got 10 years finance experience, but this has probably been the toughest year in terms of my career, in terms of having to change processes, having to remote manage your team over the laptop, losing them personal relationships that you have on a daily basis and catching up with people instead of like planning in an hour's meeting every morning. All the informal relationships got tested during the last 12 months. So I think like I can't say the word properly. Adaptability and perseverance are the two key things that have certainly come out of this for me in terms of what I've found out about myself is I am very adaptable and I will persevere to make sure that I have a growth mindset. It's very easy during this time to get into a negative spiral and think there's no way out of this. Like my business is going to fail, my careers, I'm potentially going to lose my job. But I'm a big believer in positivity and having a growth mindset, and it's great to hear what Paul's done because they've completely pivoted. They could have easily sat there and just waited for things to come back and taken grants and stuff, but to hear that they've adapted the way they have, similar to what we've done, I think they're the businesses that will survive in the long run. And if you can survive COVID-19, I'm sure you'll have a successful business for the foreseeable. So for me, it's just like whatever hits you, try and see the positives and try and see what you can do and challenge that status quo. Just don't accept and say, this is the way we've done it for 5-10 years. What can you change? How can you survive? What can you do to make things better? And what can you do to survive in the current environment? They're the big things to me is, and I did have the first couple of weeks, I was like, what are we going to do? But then as an organisation, we completely went into the growth mindset and it's like, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to change. We're going to do remote. We're going to do remote recruitment. We're going to use technology. And I think that's important to do, to be honest, is that, yeah. So that's my input on that.
I think there's been some great comments from Paul and Ant, so I won't add too much, but I think the main thing for me is just focusing on what you can control and taking one day at a time, especially in the early days of the pandemic. It was a case of taking stock. There was a lot of information, a lot of news, and it was a case of, I wanted to be really responsible, and so did Paul. As leaders for our teams, similar to what Paul says, you have a responsibility as a business owner and as an employer to look after people and to try and make sure people are supported. And it was key for us to try and do that. And we were really fortunate to get into some government contracts with virus testing centres and UK hospitals, and managing to give opportunities to our hospitality staff in new sectors. And they all, I've got so much admiration for them, changing that and going to those new sectors, and just so much grit, determination, flexibility to do that at a moment's notice, and being able to do that on sort of really testing times for the country. I think being able to just sort of go, actually, I'm going to take this and do the best I can today, put a smile on my face and go and work hard, and hopefully play my little part. I think that's really good. And I think resilience it's essential, but I think I always find it's easy to be most resilient when I just focus on what I can do and don't look too far into the future, and just go, actually, how do I get through to tomorrow? How do I make today the best day it can be? Work hard, try and look after people, be a nice person, be kind. And then if you do all those things and you've got those decent ethics, I think it comes through in what you do, and people want to be around you, and you will make the best of it. And I think for us, it also made us take stock of why we're in business, and we are now trying to become a more ethical, socially minded business, which is in the process to become a B Corp, which is businesses that focus on triple bottom line, so social and environmental value creation as well as profit, because there has to be a higher purpose. There has to be more than just about making money. You want to really leave a legacy, and it's something that I'm really passionate about now, is that we try and become, a better business that really makes a difference. But resilience is essential, I think. But again, it's realizing that life will knock you down sometimes. Things will happen, but it's just making the best of it. As Anthony and Paul said, if you can just make the best of it, change it and control it up, what you can control, then I think you'll hopefully come out the other side okay.
Yeah, brilliant. Last one to me, and I'm going to aim it towards Anthony, because I know we're running out of time, and there's so many participants who've got questions, so I'm going to hand it over to James as well. But last one for Anthony. I know you're a local lad from Liverpool, and it can be so easy to stray off path when you're younger, and maybe in your teens as well. So how did you stay focused, and what was your biggest risk to go into your own business and to grow it so big, like you and Michael have both done?
For me, obviously, I grew up in Norris Green, so I grew up when it was all the Norris Green and Croxteth gang feuds that were happening. So I was getting pulled by the police every night when I was out with my mates, and I've never been in trouble with the police. Never, because I play football as well. I've never taken any drugs, but I used to get pulled every night, no matter what. But I just didn't want to go down that route. And to be honest with you, if I went down that route, my mum would have killed me. Never mind the police. But I was just so my own person. I could have easily gone into a lot of people I went to school with. So I went to Dallasell in Croxteth. So a lot of my friends, they go down the wrong path and they get arrested. But I was just so strong-willed that I was captain of the football team. But I was in top set for everything, and I used to get some of my mates used to say, "Well, what are you doing in top sets? What are you doing that for?" And I used to always think to myself, "Yeah, I'm getting teased now, but like in 5-10 years' time, I'm going to have the stuff that I want. I want to have a family. I want to have my own home. I want to be able to have nice things. I want to be able to say I'm successful. I don't want to be like getting in trouble with the police or stuff like that." So I did used to get a little bit of teasing from the friends, because all my friends were football friends, so a lot of them didn't really want to bother with school. But I think just be your own person, and if you are getting a little bit of stick from colleagues or trying to take you down the wrong path, you don't need to go down that path. You can literally be strong, and in a couple of years' time, you'll have a really successful career. Other people that have gone down the wrong path, may get themselves into a bit of trouble. So my advice is really just be your own person, and go down the path that you want to go down in terms of your career. Don't let anyone say that you can't do it, especially where you're from. Obviously, I've got a really, I'm a bit paranoid about this, but I've got a really strong, thick Liverpool accent. And a lot of people say to me, oh, I didn't think you'd sound like that after dealing with me over email or when I've done pieces of work for them. So people are shocked when I actually start speaking. But that doesn't really affect me because I know that I've really worked hard and I've got the knowledge to actually give some substance to some of the advice that I'm giving. So don't let anyone, where you're from, determine your future. That would be my advice. That's my advice, because I certainly could have gone down the wrong route in the environment I was brought up in. But it's just be very strong-willed. That's what I would say. Be strong-willed, because that's what I was. I wouldn't allow no one to make me go down the path that some people want me to go down.
Real powerful sort of story there, Anthony. So thank you very much for sharing that with us. I'm going to hand over to James, who's got some questions from participants as well. Again, we're wary of time, but we'll try and get as many as we can over. So I'll hand it over to you, Jay.
We've been having a couple in the chat function. Bit wary of time. No, we've not got that much time left. But I'll start with Paul, if that's all right by you. I know you've been talking about your past experience of going to New York and kind of working your way up in terms of different levels of being chef and chef de partie and all these different kind of levels within chefing. So the question is, how important is it to learn from experiences?
Well, I think, you know, the journey is all about giving you the underpinning knowledge at each step that you make. I've seen people that go straight to the top and then they come down like a ton of bricks because there's nothing underneath. So it's about taking those steps bit by bit. It's not a race, you know. Famous person once said, isn't it? It's a marathon, not a sprint. And it couldn't be more truthful, because, you know, each time you move, whether it's from a commis chef to a chef de partie, from a chef de partie to a sous chef to a head chef, whatever it is. And there are so many different levels and things are changing in our industry all the time. But each time you do that, it's like a step up the ladder, or sometimes two up the ladder. But you have to make sure that you're respectful of every step that you make and the people who are with you, and whether they're underneath you or above you. And it's about that sort of controlled, steady growth. It's not about meteoric success and suddenly being top of the tree. And because I honestly, those are the times when you see people having problems. So don't be frustrated if things aren't moving as fast as you want them to, or you think that they're not, because as long as you keep your head down, you keep working in a methodical way, and you're respectful with your colleagues, and you're absorbing information, and you know that lifelong learning, you hear that all the time, but it's absolutely true. And whether you own your own restaurant by the time you're 50 or by the time you're 35 or 40, if that's what you want, that it doesn't matter. You're still going to achieve it, and you're going to have a lovely time along the way. So I think it's very much about accepting those stepping stones and making sure that there is underpinning knowledge and that there is strong foundation, so that you don't come down in times of, you know, like we're having at the moment, in times of real difficulty. If there was no underpinning knowledge and no underpinning experience, I wouldn't have got through this, you know. So it's so important that.
I totally agree with that, by the way. I've come across people where they've tried to accelerate the career too quickly, and I've seen that they've not made it through probation periods and stuff.
Yeah.
So I totally agree. Like,
it's very sad to see that as well, because you know that in actual fact the potential of that person is usually amazing, you know, and you can see that they've got it, but they just want it too quick. It's all a race. It's all rushed and not considered, and you know, just be patient. You know, sometimes you have to be content with what you've got and not move jobs and not jump ship every 5 minutes. Just take a deep breath and say, okay, I take it on the chin. I've got to learn from that and move on. And, you know, I think that would be the best advice for me.
Yeah. I wouldn't underestimate pressure as you progress through the levels as well. You've got to build that resilience up to pressure as well. So if you jump from a certain job to a job that's got a lot more pressure and there's a massive gap in between, in my opinion, you need to build that up gradually as well, because you do become more resilient to pressure the higher up you go. That's my experience anyway.
advice. Thanks for that Paul and Anthony. Really appreciate that. So the next question is actually targeted towards Anthony, if that's okay. I know a lot of the participants on the call are at different stages of their pathways. So they could be students, could be kind of individuals in college, could be individuals who have been in jobs for a number of years and looking for a change. So how important is professional development? Because I know you talked about it at the very beginning part of the call. And what advice would you give to people, obviously during COVID, around professional development?
I'm very passionate about professional development. So obviously, the start off with YTS or Oldham, everyone was doing certain courses, and I pushed to do a maths A level. I had to get me a private tutor and everything, and I was kicked up a big fuss to get these A levels. Went on to the degree, then started my accountancy qualifications, and now I'm on masters in business administration. My advice would be though, professional development isn't just educational, going to college or going to university. You can get a lot of professional development within the workforce as well. I've also got an apprenticeship in level 5 leadership and management. And for me, out of all the courses that I've done, that was probably the biggest change in terms of me as a manager. I was an informal leader, then became a manager. And the level 5, it gave me a bit of confidence to say, you're doing certain things right, but you're doing certain things wrong as well. And it gave me the skills to actually change and adapt to who I was as a manager. So it's a bit of a blend for me. I would personally say, get professional development in the workplace and make sure you get exposed to certain skills to allow you to develop and progress in the workplace. But I would advise getting external professional courses as well, because having a different way of thinking. So certainly I'm learning new stuff on the MBA now. And the only thing is with professional development in the workplace, you can be shaped by them people in that organisation, which can be really beneficial, really and great, because you're gaining a lot of experience from probably key people in them industries. But having other opinions for me is very important also. So my advice would be to get as much development in the workplace as much as possible, and expose yourself to as much as possible. Mike will tell you, I expose myself to everything. I do so many different projects outside of finance, but I want to do that because I want to develop and understand different parts of the business. But I would also advise, like, even if it's courses on like Excel, for example, something as simple as courses on Excel, expose yourself to it, get it down on your CV, practice it in your own time. A lot of the stuff I've done over the years, I practice in my own time. If I couldn't do something, I'd go on and practice. Make sure I was the best at it. So yeah, that's my advice really. So yeah.
That's very sense to me. I think what you talked about there, talking about I guess professional development in the workplace, but also finding stuff you're passionate about as well, and stuff that you want to learn and that you want to keep striving to do, and hopefully that'll help in the long term. So yeah, I appreciate that, Anthony. And last but not least, it's the question targeted towards Michael, and it's essentially recognising opportunities for future careers. So I guess this probably relates to you setting up your own business, but also kind of moving back even further from when you worked for taking the crates off the vans and kind of maybe thinking about your future career in hospitality. So yeah, any advice on recognising opportunities and how to take them?
I think the first thing I'd say is being open to opportunities. I've always, something I read it somewhere when I was younger, just try and say yes more than you say no. So when you see something, if you can say yes to it and give it a go, don't be afraid to do that, because I think if you open yourself up to things, and I think Ant mentioned it before, then he's great at this, say yes to things, put yourself forward, try and gain new skills, new experiences, and you'll be surprised what doors open for you. So I think the most important thing for me is just having the mindset where, you want to say yes more than you want to say no, and you consider what could go right and not what could go wrong. Because if you always focus on glass half empty, then it's very difficult to take the first step. Whereas if you think, actually, what's the best that could happen here? And, why don't I give it a go? Then I think you're likely to see the benefits. And the most exciting thing for me about being a business, you don't know where it could go. I've got no idea how big I can make ARC. I don't know how big we can grow, how international maybe, I don't know. But that excites me because there's no limit on that. And I think it's that mindset where you want to push yourself out your comfort zone. You want to keep trying, you want to keep striving. But it starts with the ability of just being able to say yes to things. And sometimes in business, you have to say yes to something and then work out later how you're going to do it. And it's hard. It's not straightforward, but it's because I've got the determination, the drive, the will set, the mindset, to make it happen. And then you go, actually, I will find a way. And I think if you've got that sort of approach, then good things generally will come to you. So I think for me, it's just have that mindset that, yes more than no. And also, going back to that stock boy job, I haven't thought about that job in probably 10 years, 15 years, but I loved that job. It was hard work. It was grueling, literally 3 crates packed high, coming down an Arctic lorry, putting them behind a bar for hours after hours, and really busy concerts, but it was great. But towards the end, after 2 or 3 weeks, they let me balance the whole stock for the whole concerts. I was balancing the stock to the cash receipts. I was doing the whole thing because they said one night someone didn't show up, and it was like, well, I'll do that for you if you want. You pass me a calculator, I'll work out what we've taken tonight. And it was just because I said yes and someone wasn't in that day. And I thought, actually, I'm keen to learn this, so why not? And that gave me a lot of confidence at a really young age when I needed it. So it's just putting yourself out there, I think, as Anton Paul said.
Yeah, again, really great advice there, Michael. I think what you basically touched on there is about you make your own opportunities, really, don't you, by your kind of hard work and putting yourself out there. So yeah, again, really appreciate the answers for all our guest speakers, and I'll just hand back over to Rob now.
Yeah, so thanks very much for that, James. I think it was a real good insight for our participants, and thank you to all 3 of you to agree. I know we've been sending you emails pretty much, once or twice a week, and contacting you on LinkedIn, and we say LinkedIn is such a good tool, and it's great because we use this quite a lot for speaking to our guests, and hopefully we can stay in contact and do things going forward as well. Also as well, Courtney and Maddie, thanks to you. I know you're on the call for getting me in touch with Michael and Anthony as well from the art team, so we really appreciate that. And I think James was just going to share a couple of screens. Participants as well, James has sent a link in for some feedback. Again, as always, feedback's really key, as the guest speakers have said as well, so you can fill that in. That'll be amazing. And we're just going to go to a QR code in our safeguarding slide as well. If anybody needs to talk to anybody or anyone's struggling through these hard times, then our safeguarding slide will be on there as well. Just make a note of the number, and that's available 24/7. But that's it from us. So thanks again to the guest speakers and Courtney and Maddie for making it happen. Really appreciate it, and I'll look forward to seeing everyone on Thursday for our next call. Thanks again.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. It was great.
See you on the other call, Jane.
What was that?
I'll see you on the other call.
All right, so see you in a minute.
See you in a sec.